The boy stood still in front of the man holding the new shoes. His eyes looked down at the gift, then at his own feet, dusty, cut, and tired. The teacher stepped forward with a smile. "You don't have to walk in pain anymore," he said softly, but the boy shook his head slowly. "I don't want free shoes," he said quietly. The room fell silent. Even the teacher was surprised. "Why not?" he asked gently. The boy looked up. "Because then people will say, I got pity, not respect. I want to earn them." The teacher didn't argue. He saw something in the boy's eyes, something strong, something rare, so he nodded. "All right," he said, "earn them. I'll give you one chance." The next day, the boy sat in the empty classroom with the teacher. "Top the exams," the teacher said, placing a single pencil and a few books in front of him. "Do better than the rest, and the shoes are yours." The boy picked up the pencil as if it was a sword. That night, he didn't go home straight after school. His friends went to play, but he ran to the library. He had no electricity at home, no quiet place to study. He borrowed old books and sat under the dim street light outside the post office. Cars passed, dogs barked, but the boy didn't move. When his stomach growled, he drank water from a public tap and kept reading. He tore old newspapers into small pieces and wrote formulas on the back of them. He studied until his eyes burned, until the light flickered off, and until the night swallowed everything. At home, his mother watched him enter quietly. She saw the cuts on his feet, the dust on his shirt. "You didn't eat anything," she said. He smiled. "I ate success, Amy," he whispered, holding up a crumpled math book. Days passed like this, each one harder than the last. Sometimes, his classmates laughed when he brought torn books. "Studying won't make you rich," one said. "You're just a barefoot beggar with dreams." The boy didn't reply. He just smiled, nodded, and turned the page. One afternoon, as he walked back from a shop with an old dictionary in his hand, two older boys followed him. He didn't notice until it was too late. One of them pulled his shirt from behind. "What's in your hand?" they asked. "A weapon." The boy said nothing. They grabbed the book, opened it, and laughed. They tore the pages and threw them in the drain. The boy tried to stop them, but he was small, and they were too strong. His hands trembled. "Why?" he asked. "Because you think you're better than us," one bully said. "You think studying makes you special?" They pushed him to the ground and walked away laughing. The boy sat there silently, mud on his face, water soaking the last few pages left in his hand. For a moment, he wanted to cry, to run, to give up, but then he looked at the page in his hand. A word stared back at him. Victory. He stood up slowly, brushed the mud off his clothes, and walked home barefoot, holding the torn word like a treasure. The next morning, he arrived at school early. It was exam day, but something felt wrong. His school bag was missing, his pencils gone. He had nothing. The teacher called him in. "Where are your things?" he asked. "I lost them," the boy said softly, "but I remember everything." The teacher looked unsure. "I can't let you write an exam without paper," he said. The boy stepped forward. "Then let me speak it," he said. "Let me answer everything by heart." The teacher thought for a long moment, then said, "Fine, try." What happened next would never be forgotten. For 1 full hour, the boy stood in front of the teacher and recited every problems, science facts, grammar rules, even historical dates without any notes. His voice shook sometimes, but not his memory. When he finished, there was silence in the room. The teacher stood up and clapped softly. "You didn't just pass," he said. "You made history." Later that week, results were posted on the board. The boy had topped the class. Number 1. When he entered the school hall that morning, everyone turned to look. The teacher stood in the middle, holding a box. He knelt down, opened it, and pulled out the new pair of shoes. "They're yours now," he said. "You didn't take pity. You earned pride." The boy bent down. Slowly, he placed the shoes on his feet. They were slightly big, a little stiff, but they felt like wings. He looked up at his teacher. "Thank you," he whispered. Then he paused and added, "One day, I'll make thousands feel this same moment." The teacher blinked. "Thousands," the boy nodded. "Yes, I will give shoes to others one day, not out of pity, but out of respect." The hall fell silent again, but deep in the boy's heart, something had already begun, a silent promise, louder than any cheer. And outside the window, unnoticed by most, the two bullies stood watching, their faces unreadable. One of them clenched his fists, the other walked away. Their story wasn't over. Not yet. After that day, the boy's life changed, but only a little. He now had shoes, but not comfort. He still walked home on broken roads. He still slept in a room where the wind came in through cracked walls. But something had shifted inside him. Every step he took now carried a dream. His name started to spread. Teachers from other schools visited to see the boy who spoke answers without paper. One man from a nearby town offered him a scholarship. "Come study here," he said. "Better books, better chances." But the boy looked at his teacher, the one who gave him shoes when no one else did, and shook his head. "I will stay here until I finish what I started." The teacher smiled. "Then let's begin." So the boy studied harder. He woke before sunrise. When the power went out, he studied by candlelight. When the rain came through the roof, he covered his books with plastic. When his stomach growled, He drank water and whispered, "Hunger is not stronger than hope." But outside school, not everyone was happy. Some students grew jealous. "He acts like a hero," one boy muttered, "but he's still just a poor kid with shoes." One afternoon, while the boy was helping his mother sell vegetables near the bus stop, 3 boys passed by. One of them laughed and kicked his basket. Tomatoes spilled on the ground. "Still, playing smart?" the boys sneered. "Or selling dreams now?" The barefoot boy looked at the smashed tomatoes. His mother's face was pale. He didn't shout, he didn't cry. He just picked up every tomato, wiped them clean, and placed them back. One of the bullies stepped closer. "Say something, genius." But the boy looked at him calmly and said, "Someday, you'll remember this moment and wish you had helped instead." The bully's smile faded. That night, the boy wrote a sentence on the wall of his small room with chalk. "One day, I will help those who mocked me." 2 years passed, the boy grew. His scores remained at the top. By age 15, he was selected to represent his school in a citywide speech competition. The topic? Kindness in hard times. It was his first time traveling outside the village. He had never seen buildings taller than trees. His teacher gave him his own shirt to wear. "You'll look like a leader," he said. The boy stood backstage, clutching his note cards. Other students laughed, dressed in polished uniforms, clean shoes, and fancy ties. One student looked at him and whispered, "Is that the vegetable boy? Did he walk here?" Another chuckled. "His accent sounds like the village goat herder." The boy heard them. His hands trembled. For a second he wanted to run, but then he remembered the shoes, the words on his wall, his mother's tired face, his teacher's proud smile. When they called his name, he walked to the stage slowly. The mic was tall, the lights were blinding. His voice was soft at first. "I had no shoes once," he began, "and now I stand here because someone believed in me." A few students laughed. "But more than that," he continued, "stronger now. I stand here because someone mocked me. Someone pushed me. Someone made me feel small, and I decided to grow bigger than their hate." Silence. He paused. You may laugh at someone's accent. You may call their shoes dirty, but remember, kindness is not in how we speak. It's in how we stand beside others when no one else does. He ended with a quiet bow. The hall was still for a moment, then erupted in claps. Even the judges stood up. He didn't win first place. He didn't even win second. But a woman from a famous school approached him afterward. "I want you to speak at our school," she said. "Children need to hear your story?" The boy nodded. "But only if I can bring my teacher with me." When they returned to the village, the school welcomed them with flowers. Children touched the boy's shoes as if they were lucky. And in the crowd, hidden behind others, the same bully who once kicked his tomato basket stood watching. He had dropped out 2 years ago now. He worked at a local garage, covered in grease, earning just enough for tea and bread. His eyes followed the boy, the same boy he called a beggar now, walking proudly. Children around him like stars following the moon. That night, as the boy entered his small house, his mother was waiting. "You spoke so well," she said, tears in her eyes. "Your father would have been proud." He smiled and hugged her tightly. Then he sat down and opened his notebook. He turned to a clean page and wrote just 4 words. "Shoes for every child." He didn't know how. He didn't know when. But that sentence became a promise. And miles away, the garage boy stared at his own feet, bare, cracked, covered in oil. He whispered to himself, "What if I had listened, instead of laughed?" He didn't know it yet, but their paths would cross again. In a way no one expected. The boy's sentence, "Shoes for every child," stayed on that notebook page for weeks. He read it every night before sleeping, as if it was a prayer. But dreams, no matter how strong, need action, and the boy knew it. One morning, while helping his mother stack vegetables, he asked Amy, "If I wanted to buy 1 pair of shoes every month, how much would I need to save?" She looked at him with soft eyes. "More than we earn. Beta, but if anyone can do it, it's you." So he made a plan. He began tutoring younger kids after school. He cleaned the village library for a few rupees. He started fixing old shoes for free, gluing broken soles, washing dirty pairs, even stitching torn sandals. Some parents noticed. They began giving him old shoes, thinking maybe he could repair and sell them. Instead, the boy polished every single one and gave them away. 2 children with bare feet. At first, only 2 or 3 came to him shyly, but soon, lines began forming outside his house. Word spread fast. The boy who once had no shoes was now giving them away. He built a small wooden box outside his home. On it he painted, "Take if you need, leave if you can." Some laughed at his idea. "What difference will a few shoes make?" One villager said, "You're not a hero, just a boy." But he didn't answer. He just kept working. One day, while dusting shoes, a man in a suit stepped off a motorcycle. His eyes scanned the wooden box. "You made this?" he asked. The boy stood straight. "Yes, sir." The man smiled. "I saw a picture of your shoe box online. Someone shared it. I run a small charity in the city. We donate books and clothes, but now, maybe shoes too." The boy's heart raced. "Really?" "Yes. But I need to know you're still in school, right?" He nodded. "Top of my class." "Good," the man said. "We'll send donations. You just stay honest." And just like that, his mission grew. Within months, boxes of old shoes began arriving from other towns. The boy washed, sorted, and labeled each pair carefully. His friends joined in. Some helped repair, others packed them. One rainy evening, a girl arrived with no umbrella. Her dress was soaked, and her feet were muddy. "I heard you have shoes," she whispered. He handed her a small blue pair, barely used. She looked at him, and smiled. "I've never had my own." Her voice broke something inside him. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat under the leaking roof and wrote letters to 10 different schools, asking them to donate shoes they no longer needed. Only one school replied. It was the school that once laughed at his accent, but the principal's voice on the phone surprised him. "We saw your interview," she said. "You made us think." Soon, 2 big cartons arrived from that school packed with clean shoes, handwritten notes from students, and a small donation. As he opened the boxes, he saw a note that stopped him cold. "We once laughed at you. Now we want to walk with you. Forgive us." There was no name, but the handwriting looked familiar. It was from the same boy who had once kicked his tomato basket, the mechanic. The boy stood still, heart heavy, eyes full. He picked up the note and folded it gently. "Everyone deserves a second chance," he whispered. But as his mission grew, new problems came. Some villagers complained that too many outsiders were visiting. One man shouted, "Who is this boy to invite strangers to our village?" Another spread a rumor. "He's selling the shoes, making money." The boy heard it all. It hurt. One afternoon he found his wooden box broken, smashed into pieces. Shoes scattered everywhere. He sat beside the broken pieces, not saying a word. When his teacher arrived, he found him still sitting there in the dark. "Do you want to stop?" the teacher asked gently. The boy looked up. "No. I want to rebuild stronger." And he did. This time he used bricks, painted the new box white, wrote a new message. "This is not charity. This is respect." And on the back he added, "For the boy I used to be." Then something unbelievable happened. One evening, a local news channel arrived. They interviewed him beside the new box. The clip went viral. Comments flooded in. "Who is this young man? He's doing more than big charities. This is what real heroes look like." A famous actor shared the video. A businessman offered funding. Even the government school board sent a certificate of appreciation. But the boy didn't stop to celebrate. He used the new donations to start a small workshop where kids could come after school, clean donated shoes, and take one pair home. Called it the Footstep Project. Now, every child left with shoes and pride. But behind the smiles and claps, the boy knew the journey wasn't over. He still had one person to find. The man who once gave him his first shoes, his old teacher now, missing from the village for almost a year. Some said he had moved to a far town. Some whispered he was sick. But the boy didn't forget. "I won't stop," he said, "until I place a new pair of shoes at his feet." And so, with a bag full of fresh shoes and a letter in his pocket, he began walking down the old road once again, toward the man who first saw something in him when no one else did. But what he would find was not what he expected. The boy walked with quiet steps, his bag of shoes hanging from his shoulder, and the letter pressed safely inside his pocket. The road ahead was long and full of memories, dusty turns, broken walls, and the same trees he had passed as a child with no shoes. Now his feet were covered, his steps were strong, but his heart felt heavy. He didn't know where to begin. All he had was a name, an old address, and a promise in his heart. He reached the small town just before sunset. The light was golden, and the streets were calm. He stopped outside a rusted gate with a wooden board that read Hassan's tailor shop. It was closed. Dust covered the windows, and the lock was old. A man nearby was sipping tea on a stool. "Are you looking for someone, Beta?" he asked kindly. "I'm looking for Mr. Hassan. He used to be a teacher," the boy said. The man nodded slowly. "Hassan, sir. He was my neighbor. Kind man, always helping people. But he doesn't live here anymore." The boy's heart dropped. "Do you know where he went?" The man looked away, then pointed toward a small clinic down the road. "He's sick now, stays at the shelter behind the clinic alone." Without another word, the boy ran. The shelter was quiet. The nurse at the desk looked surprised to see someone his age. "I'm here to see Mr. Hassan," he said, out of breath. The nurse raised her eyebrows. "He doesn't get many visitors. Are you family?" "No," the boy said softly. "He gave me shoes once, when no one else did." The nurse paused, then smiled gently. "Room 6. But prepare yourself. He's not the same." The boy stepped inside slowly. The room was small. A single bed, a fan creaking above, and a man lying still, his back turned. His hair was gray now, his body thinner. The boy hesitated. "Sir?" he said quietly. No answer. He stepped closer. "It's me, the boy from the vegetable stall. You gave me your shoes." "Years ago?" The man turned, eyes slow and tired. For a moment, he just stared. Then, faint recognition flickered in his eyes. "You," he whispered. The boy nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. I found you. I've been looking for you. I brought something." He opened his bag and took out a box. Inside, a pair of new black shoes, polished and shining. "These are for you," the boy said, voice shaking. "You gave me mine when I had nothing. Now I want you to have these." Mr. Hassan smiled faintly. A tear rolled down the corner of his eye. You remembered? I never forgot. The boy replied. The teacher took the shoes with trembling hands. I didn't think anyone would remember me. The boy sat beside him and opened the letter he had written. Sir, because of your kindness, I have given away over 5,000 pairs of shoes. I built a center for children who once walked like me barefoot, hopeless. Your one act became my whole life. I came to thank you. Mr. Hassan closed his eyes, tears falling freely now. I was just trying to help one boy. You helped thousands, the boy whispered. They sat in silence for a long time, the kind that doesn't need words. After that day, the boy returned to his village, but not alone. He made sure Mr. Hassan was moved to a better hospital in the city, paid for by the donations from the Footstep Project. News spread again, this time, not just about the shoes, but about the boy who searched for his teacher. Articles called it the full circle of kindness. A national TV channel requested an interview. The boy agreed, but only under one condition. I won't go alone, he said. I want my teacher with me. And so, for the first time in years, Mr. Hassan sat in front of a camera, wearing the same shoes his student had gifted him. The anchor asked, Mr. Hassan, did you ever imagine that one small act would grow into something so big? The teacher smiled. No, but I believe now. Every small kindness carries a seed. You just never know which one will grow. The video broke records online. Thousands of people sent messages. Some offered shoes, others offered money. Many just said, you made me cry. Thank you. But, with every message, the boy remained calm. He had learned something new. Kindness doesn't need attention. It just needs action. He built 3 more footstep centers in nearby towns. His dream was becoming real. Every step, every box, every thank you letter, it all felt worth it. But then came a letter that changed everything. It had no return. Address, only a few words inside. I used to steal your shoes. I was the boy who laughed when you cried. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I was broken too. But I saw your story, and I cried. I'm not proud of who I was, but I want to change, if there's a way. Please let me help. The boy read it again and again. His hands shook. His breath slowed. The same boy who made him walk barefoot through the mud now wanted to help. He looked out the window, lost in thought. He sat by the window all night. The letter from LA opened beside him. The words kept repeating in his mind. I was the boy who laughed when you cried. That sentence hit him harder than anything else. That boy, the same boy who had pushed him down in front of the class, who stole his shoes, who walked away laughing as he stood barefoot in the dirt, now wanted forgiveness. It felt unreal. Part of him wanted to throw the letter away, but another part, the one shaped by Mr. Hassan's kindness, whispered something different. What if he's telling the truth? What if he's trying to change, just like I did? The next morning he placed the letter inside his notebook and walked to the Footstep office. His team greeted him with smiles and updates. A new shipment of shoes had arrived. 2 schools had requested help. A local girl had started her own drive inspired by his story. The work was growing, but his heart felt heavy. He went into his office, locked the door, and sat in silence. After hours of thinking, he wrote a simple reply. If you truly want to help, meet me. Same place where you left me barefoot. I'll be there Sunday, noon. He didn't sign the letter. He didn't even know if A would come, but he had to try. Closure, forgiveness, or maybe something else he didn't know yet. Sunday came. He stood near the old school wall, the same spot where years ago he had cried, surrounded by laughter. Now the wall was cracked and overgrown. He waited in silence. Noon passed, then 10 minutes, then 20. Just as he turned to leave, he heard footsteps. A man, maybe his age, walked slowly toward him, a cap pulled down low, shoulders hunched, hesitant. They stood face to face. The man didn't speak at first. Then, finally, he removed his cap. His eyes were red. His voice shook. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said, but I came because I couldn't live with it anymore. The boy didn't answer. The man continued. I was jealous, angry. My father left. My mother was sick. I hated the world. And you smiled even when you had nothing. It made me angry, so I hurt you. Silence again. I've seen your story, the man added. You became what I could never be. But I want to try now. I want to help, even if I don't deserve to. The boy looked at him for a long time. Memories flooded back of pain, hunger, shame, but also of Mr. Hassan's shoes. That one act that had changed his path. He finally spoke. You broke me once, he said quietly, but you also pushed me to become stronger. I hated you for years, but now, I don't want to carry that weight anymore. The man's eyes filled with tears. Come with me, the boy said. They walked in silence to one of the footstep centers. Children played outside, their laughter light and free. Some were barefoot, others wore donated shoes. A girl ran up and hugged the boy. Thank you for the pink ones, she beamed. The man watched in awe. Inside, volunteers packed boxes, each one labeled with the child's name. The boy pointed to an empty desk. You want to help? He asked. Start here. The man nodded slowly. He sat down, picked up a list, and began folding boxes. It wasn't easy. Some of the other volunteers looked at him with suspicion, but the boy said nothing. He let time speak. Weeks passed. The man showed up every morning, worked silently, and stayed late. He never asked for praise. He just worked. Slowly, the others began to accept him. One afternoon, the boy walked in and found the man sitting with a group of kids, tying their shoelaces. One child asked, "Were you always this kind?" The man paused, then smiled gently. "No, I had to learn it the hard way." That night, the boy visited Mr. Hassan again. He told him everything. About the letter, the meeting, the new volunteer. Mr. Hassan chuckled softly. "Forgiveness is the highest form of strength," he said. "You've done well." The boy nodded, but deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. If someone like A could change, maybe others could too. So he launched a new idea, a campaign called From Wounds to Worth. It encouraged people who had made mistakes, bullies, thieves, runaways to come forward, help, and give back. No judgment, just healing. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in. Stories of regret, of change, of people who had once been lost, now wanting to find meaning. Footstep centers became more than just places for shoes. They became safe spaces for second chances. One day, as he was speaking at a youth conference, a girl in the crowd raised her hand and asked, "What made you forgive someone who hurt you so badly?" He smiled and answered, "Because someone once gave me shoes when I didn't even have hope. That one act changed my life. I figured maybe one act of forgiveness can change someone else's." The crowd stood up in applause. But as he looked into their eyes, he realized he wasn't just telling a story. He was living proof that broken roads can lead to beautiful places. That night, as he walked home, he opened a letter from a mother in another town. It read, "My son was angry, lost. He bullied a boy once, but after hearing your story, he cried for the first time in years. Now he volunteers at a local shelter. Thank you for giving him a reason to believe he can change." He closed the letter and looked up at the stars. One act, one pair of shoes, one moment of courage. And knew thousands walking toward hope, but there was still one more journey to take. Something was calling him back to the mountain village, where he once lived barefoot and unseen. He packed a new pair of shoes, the same size he used to wear, and whispered, "It's time to go back, one last time." The mountain road was rough, just like it had been all those years ago. The boy now, a young man, held a small cardboard box in his hands. Inside it was a single pair of brand new canvas shoes. Not expensive, not fancy, but strong, simple, and meaningful. He hadn't forgotten the size. He could never forget. These were the kind of shoes he had once dreamed of, the kind he had never owned, and now, he was taking them home. He hadn't been back to the village since he left as a child. It wasn't just the distance, it was the memories. The silence of those nights. The cold under his feet. The looks from the villagers. He remembered every stone on that road. Every time someone stepped over him without a word. The boy with no shoes was invisible then. Now he was returning, but this time people would see him. He stepped off the small bus and walked slowly through the old village path. The houses were the same, small, broken, tired, but children played outside. Their laughter filled the air, just like it once had, except this time, it didn't sting. It warmed him. A small boy ran past him barefoot. The sight stopped him. He crouched and gently asked, "Where are your shoes?" The boy shrugged. "They broke. I'll get new ones. Maybe next year." The man smiled softly and opened the box he carried. He held up the pair of shoes and said, "These are for you, just your size." The child's eyes widened. He looked around, unsure if it was a trick. But when the man placed the shoes on his feet and tied the laces himself, the boy whispered, "Thank you." He didn't know what it was about that moment, but tears filled the man's eyes. It was like he had just given that gift to his younger self. Like the circle was closing. Like the pain had finally turned into something beautiful. He continued walking until he reached a quiet hill at the edge of the village. This was where his mother used to bring him, where they would sit and share the only food they had, where she would sing old songs to make him forget the hunger. He sat down, closed his eyes, and let the wind carry her memory back to him. He had made it. He was no longer the boy with no shoes. He was a man with a purpose. But something still tugged. At his heart, he walked to the house of the old schoolteacher who had once ignored him. She still lived there. Her hair was white now. When she opened the door, she squinted at him. "I don't think I know you," she said. "You once asked me to leave your class because I had no shoes?" He replied calmly. She froze. "But before she could speak," he said, "I came to say thank you." She looked at him, stunned. "Because you made me invisible. I fought harder to be seen," he added. "Because you didn't help me, I learned to help others." The old woman's eyes filled with tears. "I was wrong," she whispered. "I didn't see you. I didn't see your pain." He nodded gently. "But now, others do. That's enough for me." He walked away, not with bitterness, but peace. Later that evening, he stood in the village center with a loudspeaker in his hand. The villagers gathered, confused. Children peeked from behind their parents. Some remembered his face, others did and single quotes. He told his story, not to shame anyone, but to show them what could happen when a single act of kindness met a heart that refused to give up. I was once barefoot in this village, he said, and no one looked at me, but one man gave me a pair of shoes. That changed my life. Today, I run an organization that gives shoes to children across the country, and now I'm back to start something here. There was silence, then applause. Then, something unexpected. A woman stepped forward, carrying a bundle of old baby shoes. I kept these from my son, she said. He passed away young. I always wanted them to help someone else. One by one, others came forward, some with shoes, some with coins, some with food, and that night, the first footstep center in his own village was born. But just as he stood, outside, smiling at the lanterns being lit, he saw a familiar face approaching slowly from the edge of the crowd. It was his uncle, the same man who had told him he would never amount to anything. The man who had once locked the food cupboard and laughed when the boy cried from hunger. They stood in silence. The uncle spoke first. I heard what you're doing. I was wrong about you. The sun rose gently over the hills, casting a golden light across the village. It was the same sun he had grown up under, but it didn't feel the same. Everything looked different now. The boy who once ran barefoot over stones and mud was now a man with a team, a vision, and a promise to keep. The small footstep center in the village was now buzzing with energy. Volunteers unpacked boxers, elders offered prayers, and children lined up with hopeful eyes. He watched quietly from the edge. It felt surreal, like watching his dream come to life in slow motion. A little girl approached him, holding one torn slipper in her hand. Mister, she said softly, my other one got lost. He knelt down and smiled. You won't need these anymore. He reached into a box and pulled out a fresh pair of pink sneakers. Her eyes lit up. She didn't say anything, just hugged his leg tightly. That single hug made all the years of pain, struggle, and hunger worth it. After the first successful event in his home village, things moved faster than he ever imagined. News channels picked up his story. The boy with no shoes builds hope for thousands. Social media exploded with his story. People began sending shoes from across the country. Schools joined. Celebrities donated. Brands offered sponsorship. But through it all, he stayed grounded. Every time he saw a child receive shoes, he remembered how cold his feet once were, how he had hidden behind walls. Ashamed? He remembered the day he cried outside his school, the day he walked 10 miles just to beg for a book, and the night he slept on an empty stomach, dreaming of running with shoes on. Now, he was giving children a chance to run without pain. One day, he received a letter in the mail. It was from a big international university. They had read his story and wanted to invite him to speak at their annual summit on global change. He read the letter 3 times, then quietly placed it on the table and stared at it for a long time. The boy who had once been thrown out of school for having no shoes was now being invited to speak to professors, thinkers, and leaders. When the day arrived, he stood in front of a large crowd. Cameras flashed. The hall was packed. But when he took the stage, all he saw was a small classroom from years ago, and a boy sitting in the last row, dirty feet hidden under the bench. He took a deep breath. I don't come from a rich family, he began. I don't have fancy degrees or fluent English. I was just a boy without shoes, and that was enough for people to ignore me. The room went silent. But I learned something. When life gives you nothing, you have 2 choices. Give up or give back. I chose to give back. He shared stories not of his achievements, but of the children. The girl in the village who danced for the first time in new shoes. The boy who stopped skipping school because his feet didn't bleed anymore. When he finished, the crowd stood and clapped for nearly 2 minutes. Some wiped their eyes. A few came forward to hug him. Back in his room that night, he looked at himself in the mirror. Not to admire his success, but to remember who he was. He whispered, Thank you, Oma. I hope you can see me now. The next morning, he flew to another remote town. This one was colder, even poorer than his village had been. There, a little boy stood barefoot outside the bus stop. He looked about 8 years old, shivering, with cracked feet and dust in his hair. The man got down from the bus and walked toward him slowly. Where are your shoes? He asked. The boy looked up, scared, and replied, I don't have any. He smiled and said, I didn't either. Once. Then he knelt down, opened his backpack, and pulled out a fresh pair. As he slipped them onto the boy's feet, people began to gather again. 1 pair at a time, 1 village at a time, 1 life at a time. He kept going. The number of donated shoes crossed 50,000, but he didn't stop. He didn't celebrate, because to him, it wasn't about the numbers. It was about the child in front of him, always. Years later, an old reporter interviewed him again. She asked, What kept you going all these years? He looked at her and said, A stone. She frowned. A stone, he nodded. When I was a boy, I once stepped on a sharp stone that tore my foot open. I bled all the way home. That pain never left me. Every time I give a child shoes, I remember that stone, and I make sure they never feel what I felt. The reporter didn't say anything. She just wrote the last line of her article. He turned his wound into the world's comfort. Today, the boy with no shoes is no longer just a man with a mission. He is a symbol, a reminder that pain can be fuel, that kindness can ripple, That one pair of shoes can change a life forever. And somewhere in a dusty village, under a familiar tree, a small stone still lies on the path. But no child cries there anymore. Because the boy who once walked that road barefoot made sure of it.